14-year-old Nihal Sarin takes on Vishy Anand here. Nihal has the white pieces and the time control is 25 minutes plus 10 seconds increment. Nihal opts for 1d4 and Vishy now brings out his knight to f6. This is such a wonderful clash of generations here between the legend of Indian chess, Vishy Anand, and the absolute huge talent, Nihal Sarin. d5 and now g3. Nihal plays the Catalan opening against Vishy and Vishy simply takes the pawn. One of the things that you will notice in this game is how Nihal moves his pieces very carefully. c5, castles, and now Vishy has to decide which line he's going for. He plays his knight to c6 and Nihal takes the pawn on c5. This is an endgame line, but it is very much in keeps with Nihal's style. He likes to press slightly better positions. Bishop takes c5 and now he brings his knight here, trying to take the pawn on c4 when white would be better, and that's the reason why Vishy pushes the pawn, gives it up, but in return spoils the white structure slightly. Nihal takes it back and now Anand castles it out. This is all well-known theory and you can see the time of both players has risen to 26 minutes on the clock. Bishop goes back to e7 here and now Nihal pushes his pawn. He wants to put his bishop on b2. Black's main problem is this bishop on c8, which Vishy has now developed on d7. Nihal goes bishop b2 and the threat is to take here and maybe then chop off this bishop. Anand plays his rook to d8, defending the bishop, and now the knight jumps in, putting pressure on c6 and unleashing this bishop. Vishy defends it, and now Nihal plays his knight to b5. You can see that he's well prepared. Pawn to b6. Notice you can win a pawn here, but after rook c6, knight a7, the c4 pawn is also under pressure, and that's the reason why Nihal goes knight to d6, bishop takes by Anand, and now rook takes d6 ensures that white has the bishop pair here. But is it going to be enough against such an experienced player like Vishy Anand? Bishop e8 played, and look at Nihal, he's still in his preparation. He plays rook d3. Vishy is down to 22 minutes. Now Anand plays his knight to b4, attacking the rook. Nihal still takes it. It's quite scary to play against a player who's so well prepared. We are on move number 19 already. Bishop c3, still prep. Whoa, amazing. The knight comes back, but you know, one thing you can't do to Anand is scare him off because he has years of experience on his side. Now first move that Nihal thought for 6 minutes, plays a4, knight goes back to d7 and Nihal pushes forward with a5. His threat is to take and attack this knight. So Vishy takes advantage of the c5 square, which is an outpost for his knights. Knight takes, and now you can take back with the knight. He takes it back, knight takes on c5. You will notice that in this position, white should be very slightly better because he has the bishop pair. He has a bishop on c3 and a bishop on g2. But what black has here is this ultra solid knight on c5. e3 played by Nihal. Look at the way in which he pushes his pawn. His idea is maybe to plonk the bishop on the d4 square. Rook comes to c8, defending the knight and also putting pressure on the c4 point. Nihal plays his bishop to f1. That's slightly passive move, but what Nihal is hoping for is now that the bishop defends this pawn, he can actually move his other bishop to d4, rook to b1 and put pressure on b6. He plays rook to b1 and attacks the pawn on b6. Anand brings his knight back, defends it. It's also quite impressive that actually Nihal is trying for something in such a position against such an experienced opponent. Mind you, Nihal is not the beast that he is today. He's 2700 plus as on today, but at that point he was just a grandmaster rising up the ranks. Bishop d4 played, trying to attack the pawn on b6. Now the bishop comes to e4 and attacks the rook. You need to move it. Where will the rook go? And here Nihal plays his rook to b4 and his threat is to take on b6 and maybe then have an extra pawn in the position. So Anand goes a bit passive. He plays rook to b8 and defends the pawn. Nihal now offers a trade of the bishop. This is a small concession because you have the bishop pair, but somehow Anand's bishop in the center was so strong. King takes g2 and now pawn up to f6. So Vishy limiting the bishop on d4 and now getting ready to bring his king into the game. e4 played by Nihal. And now Anand can fight back for the space. That's what he does. He pushes his pawn to e5 and questions the bishop there on d4. The bishop has to move back to e3. And now Anand brings his king up. King to f7. And Nihal goes pawn up to h4. Nice move. Trying to clamp down the structure. Vishy can go actually. He goes rook c8. He could have actually played h5 and he was completely fine there. But now h5. Nihal again gains more space. Very interesting play. E takes f4. And I think Vishy has a very clear equalizing plan in mind. After Nihal takes, the best move now is to play g5, trade more pawns, and he should be completely fine. But Vishy makes an error. He plays f5, and this actually gives Nihal a small opportunity. He takes on f5, and now if it's not so easy to recover the pawn, and that's what you can see. Anand stops a bit, king f6, and here's a nice move. You can start with king f3, that's fine. But after he takes here, you should go bishop d4. This is an important move that Nihal has to find. Or you could have started here with bishop d4 and after king f5, gone king f3. That would also lead to a similar position. But Nihal gets a bit greedy and takes the pawn. But Vishy, very, very smart. He goes to the other side and attacks the pawn on h5. King e6. And now the pawn is hanging on c4. Gives a check. Defends the pawn and now can push the pawn to c5. King d6 played. And yes, Nihal pushes the pawn. So he is actually a pawn up, a very, very solid pawn up in the position. Rook to e7. The threat is to take the pawn on g7. But now knight takes on h5 has been played, defending the pawn. King to g4, attacking the knight. And knight comes back. Check. Well, it still feels that white has the initiative here. King f5. He's trying to come into g6 to attack the pawn on g7. But Vishy brings his rook in. And now it's not so easy to take this pawn because there's a knight h5 check here. And you are in trouble. So rook c7. King comes up. And Nihal goes in with his king. But now Anand plays his knight. This is exactly the kind of defense that one should learn from an experienced player like Anand. Although he was under pressure, he actually defended it very commendably. Rook takes f4. And although Nihal will be a pawn up here, now Vishy can actually defend this with check. King has to move. You can see both players now know that the game is drawn. King g7. And Anand plays his rook to c6. And now once the rooks are traded, the c5 pawn falls. And there you have it. A draw has been agreed between them. What a nice game between Nihal and Anand. And actually, the little boy was pressing very so slightly in the game. He could have had much more than a draw. Because after Vishy slipped a bit with f5. But it was a draw. The first ever encounter between Nihal Sarin and Vishy Anand, and in fact the only encounter until 2023 between these two guys. They haven't played again.
Suddenly f5, king f6, they should play bishop d4 check. King f5, bishop g7. No, king f5, now king f3. Oh, is this what happened? King f3, bishop d6. No, it's a bishop d6, bishop d4. Yeah, no, I actually got careless. But you should stop that 10 years now. Yeah, no, actually, bishop d4 check and king f3 is unpleasant. I got careless there.
I thought bishop d6 and I will be bishop d3.
Yes, but I go for this pawn, of course. So you play bishop d4, you attack this pawn. So I think I will play g5.
Maybe after knight f6, if you play bishop d4.
Knight h5. King. And f5 push me back, king f7.
Yes.
Yeah, it could be.
And then I try to go with the knight.
Yes, probably. No, like I said, I just, for 1 minute I played f5, e5, and then I saw that bishop d4 and king f3. And, yeah. But I mean, I just have to play h5 and it's a draw, so there's nothing going on.
Or just ef and g5.
Ef and g5 is also, because now I play rook c5 and attack that pawn as well after being liquidated. Or you have a meaningless pawn, so it comes to
Like, I think rook d5 check is just. If I play bishop d4, I think this one is just. Knight h5, rook d5 check, king g6, f5 check.
Yeah, can I play g5? Sorry. So f6, king g6, f7, knight g7, king f5. Broken. It's still broken.
Check, king e5.
Why? King g5. Also king e5, it's anti-west.
I think I have to try bishop d4.
Yeah, no, this was the only serious, because the other line I think I have to be a little bit careful, but if I play g5, but, this one should be.
Ну, я пошел.